Hey everybody, in this EFT video, I want to talk about the feeling of powerlessness and vulnerability and do some tapping on it. We are vulnerable, right? The control is an illusion. We think, I've lost control and I've got to get control back. Control is an illusion. Our sense of control is how much influence can I exert over conditions and people and the stuff around me so that I feel safe and I feel happy and I feel prosperous, right? Look at the effect that that idea has had on the world. That's our modern meaning of power. It's not inner power. It's not personal empowerment. It's not my own sense of value and my own sense of inner resources. It's my capacity to control others and dominate others through all sorts of different means, mostly by the threat of fear. Look at the world. In an attempt to cover up, to obscure our inherent sense of vulnerability, we are making a huge mess. I think it's probably time for us to just come to terms with vulnerability. The fact that we really are powerless. If you regard power as simply the capacity to maintain external conditions. But you do have a power that is unbelievably off the charts powerful. And that is, every single moment you can determine how you are going to react, view, perceive the conditions that you're in. You do have absolute control over what goes on inside. Our focus from the time we are children is about how we can control the external circumstances. And we control it either through force or through manipulation. We try to manipulate. Even the sense of victimhood is an attempt to manipulate the environment to give you what you need. It's all about trying to control. Seeking approval or seeking to control, or seeking to manipulate, or seeking to dominate are all species of the same thing, a feeling of vulnerability. A sense of vulnerability. And I call it a sense of vulnerability because it is way more than a feeling. Sometimes we feel vulnerable, and that's a feeling of being anxious or being kind of threatened in some way. Like somebody is, yelling at you or something, you can feel really vulnerable. Or if, they're doing layoffs at work, you feel vulnerable. That's kind of vulnerability. It's to a direct threat. What I'm talking about is something even deeper, an inherent sense of vulnerability, an inherent belief in vulnerability that is inherent in the human being, because we are vulnerable. Now, I'm not going to go into the spiritual thing that you're more than your body, and it's the body that's vulnerable and not you. That's really very true, but I just want to deal with it as a universal, general human experience. I am vulnerable. What happens if we were to totally own that vulnerability, stop denying it, stop pretending it's not there, and recognize that your entire energy system, your whole being, the whole evolution of life has been to empower you against that vulnerability, that you have actually been given all sorts of powers to sustain yourself. They're not absolute. We're not super people. Right? Things can come along that are way beyond what you can possibly handle, and wham, it's over, right? And that can happen in all different aspects of our life, including the ending of the life itself, right? My nervous system, no matter how sophisticated and advanced it gets, is not going to be able to stand up to a bus if I don't happen to see it as I'm stepping out into the street. What it has done is made us alert on a level that we're not really conscious of, so that we'll actually see that bus before it does that to us. And I had that experience probably about 6 months ago. I actually found myself falling back off the street. That's when I became conscious of the fact that I had stepped out in the street. There was a bus coming, and I was actually all the way back onto the curb, falling backwards before I consciously saw that bus. My nervous system saw it and responded to it. Right? Now, Am I vulnerable to the bus? Yes. If I look at it terms consciously, yes. But was I? No. Because I did have, as do you, as do we all, have built-in powers to mitigate the vulnerability. So we can begin to use EFT to break down our illusions of this absolute vulnerability that doesn't exist, and to awaken the sense of our natural inherent powers that are basically balancing and stabilizing against the instability and vulnerability and threats that the environment hands to us, right? So the way to do that is really kind of extraordinary, and it's really what I discovered and I put into Inner Reconciliation, which you can learn more about there's a link below to find out more about it. Up there one too if it's active. And that is to go direct to that sense of disempowerment, the sense of of feeling vulnerable and powerless, and just speaking that as if it was true. Just really dropping our conflict with it, because it's very frightening. I'm really vulnerable, the environment's going to get me. It's very, very frightening. But if you go, you know what, I really am vulnerable. I've got X number of powers to deal with. There's only so much I can possibly do. I totally accept myself who I am. And I'm going to just trust in my own nature because that's all I've really got. There's an enormous relief in that. And it takes off anxiety, it takes off weight, and actually frees that energy to be as powerful as it possibly can. And that's what we're after here, right? To liberate the power that you do have. Is it absolute? No. Is it adequate to the situation? Pretty much all the time. And that's the discovery you make. It is actually the number of things that can really threaten you are so small as to be an insignificant thing. If we really knew how inherently safe and how beautifully adapted we are to the environment and how rarely real threatening danger happens, we would all feel totally content and safe and happy all the time. Because the reality is we are. But we don't know that. And we have been trained to behave and believe as if we weren't. And so that's what I want to address right now. And it's funny how I'm going to do it, because I'm going to actually do it and take exactly the opposite stance. So let's start tapping. Karate chop point. Even though I'm totally powerless, there are so many things that can happen to me that would squash me like a bug. Poof, gone. The bus. It's over. And I totally accept where I am, who I am, and love myself anyway. So even though I am powerless, I can't do anything about all these circumstances. I'm open to the possibility that there's more to me than I realize. So even though I am powerless, so many things I can't do anything about, I'm open to the possibility of not worrying about it. I am powerless, and I love myself anyway. Let's tap through the points. Okay, I'm powerless. I could be squashed like a bug. I totally accept it. I totally let go of trying to fix things I can't fix. I totally let go of trying to change things I can't change. I totally accept where I am. But I'm also open to the possibility maybe I have more power than I think I do. If I'm totally powerless, if that's the truth, I accept it. I'm dropping the fight. I'm tired of struggling. But I'm open. I mean, I've survived this long. I'm not living too bad. True, I don't have everything I want. But who does? I've adapted to a lot of things. I've come out on top all sorts of times. Maybe I have more inner resources than I realize. Maybe I've been taught to feel powerless. Maybe I've been convinced I'm powerless. Maybe it's like I'm hypnotized or something. Thinking I'm something I'm not. I'm not trying to create artificially a sense of powerfulness. But I'm aware that there are some inherent abilities in me. That there are some things that just seem to work. I'm open to seeing myself totally as I am. My energy system has protected me my whole life. I've grown up. I've done pretty well. And I think I'm going to do pretty well. I'm totally open to seeing who I really am. Take a deep breath. And just notice how that feels. Notice I'm not asserting anything. I'm not affirming anything. I'm not trying to say, I'm powerful, hoping that somehow it's going to sink in. Matter of fact, I'm saying exactly the opposite. I'm admitting that there's limits to my power. But I'm also opening myself up to the possibility that I have more than I realize. But it's not just a conscious ability to control conditions. Something inside. And just notice that you feel more safe, more centered, more powerful, but not in a sense of aggressive power, not in a sense that I can control things, a sense that I am the equal to every situation. Everything that happens to me, I'm actually capable of responding to. Because the reality is, my friends, everything that that's happened in your life, you have responded to. As we look back on something may have 10 years ago, boy, I could have done that better. Well, no, you couldn't. You could now if it happened, but it didn't happen now, it happened then. And so in that moment, you responded with the resources that you had. And guess what? They were adequate, weren't they? Because here you are. Now, if we always judge ourselves against the results we wish we would have gotten, we may always interpret that as us coming up short. But we never came up short. We always responded in every single instance of our lives with the resources we had available at that time, and at that time they were adequate, and you got on to the next step, and the next step, and the next step, and now here you are, on the verge of waking up to who you are. Hope you're enjoying these videos. Love you all. GP Walsh. Namaste.